All right, everyone, you're listening to the HBCU Game Day Podcast. This is Stephen J. Gaither, and I am on the phone right now with one of the hottest coaches in college basketball. His team literally is one of the hottest teams in college basketball. Grambling, Donte Jackson is on the phone with us. Coach Jackson, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you so much. Again, I appreciate you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Like I was just saying to you offline a second ago, you know, when you're on a 10-game winning streak, it's hard to get away from everybody. And then if you're you start to lose a couple games, it's a little bit easier to get away from everybody. So I'm sure you're happy to be on that end of the stick right now.
I'm definitely happy to be on that end of the stick. You know, we'll take winning over losing any damn week.
Right. So, again, you guys are on a 10-game winning streak, just coming off of a big road win over Texas Southern, who obviously has been the standard bearer in the SWAC for the past couple of seasons, and just talk about getting the entire streak, but just getting a win on the road like that, a place in Houston where it's traditionally been pretty hard for teams to go in and get a win.
Well, to be totally honest, we just went in there and we competed our butt off. I didn't think, going into the game that we would be up 41-19 at the half, but like I told our guys, I knew Texas Southern would come with a big momentum push in the second half, and we had to fight them off. And I'm just happy our guys, played well enough to get the win.
Right, and talk about your guys. The big name, obviously, or the guy who's been really carrying the load offensively for you guys is Ivy Smith, sophomore out of Washington. Just talk about his progression, especially in this last month as you guys have gotten on this hot streak.
Man, coming in and inheriting the team, I looked at Ivy and the first thing as a coach, you look and say, hey, man, you got a point guard? And I looked at Ivy and said, yeah, I definitely got a point guard, and the kid is electric. And just the last couple of games, he's been on a tear, and we hope he can keep this up throughout the regular season. He's been a big-time catalyst for us, offensively and defensively. A lot of the things that people don't really, they see the offensive numbers, but they don't understand the defensive effort that he puts out every day. And with the pressure on the ball, with the home ball pressure, and make sure he's in passing lanes, he's doing a great job being a great leader as a sophomore.
Right. Now you talk about getting the job. Of course, for those who don't know, Coach Jackson came in, was hired pretty late in the season last year. I think it was almost summertime when you got in.
July 1. Got here July 1, and had to pick up the pieces, put together some pieces, and try to do some late recruiting pitches, and we ended up getting a few kids that we were highly excited about, and they're doing a great job of producing right now.
Right. Now this is your first job at Division I, but you've been in first job in the SWAC, but you've been around and been a coach and a player at HBCUs before. Previous to that, this Coach Jackson was at Stillman in the NAIA, and before that the SIAC, and then also at Central State, your alma mater. Just talk about start at Central State. You go there out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Wisconsin's one of those states where you don't have HBCUs. So
it's crazy, right? Because I took an HBCU college tour. Never knew that I would, with the Boys and Girls Club, never knew I would end up at Central State. So that Central State was the first school we stopped at. So I ended up playing at Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Division I for a year, then transferred down to Central State, and had a great run at Central State. And I was thinking about, as all these guys have these ideas of grandeur going overseas and playing basketball, and Doug Lewis and Michael Green, who were the head coach and assistant coach at the time, told me I'd be a good coach and I should, try to stick, help out as a student assistant. So I had the opportunity to help out as a student assistant, ended up getting an assistant job, kind of learning the ropes of recruiting at Central State, and got blessed by Kellen Winslow to give me the head coaching job at 30 years old. And the rest is kind of history from there. Just been working, as a head coach from that point on, and then had a great run at Stillman, and now I'm here at Grambling trying to keep producing a winning record for these guys.
Right, and as a coach, is that something that now that you've been coaching and doing this for a while, have you started picking up on maybe some players, or picked up on some players that you start to see, hey, they might have some coaching traits as well, and as basketball.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like throughout my stops, there's always some guys you look at and say, you know what, he's gonna be pretty good because he pick up things really easily, or he picks up the concepts and things, and he understands how to play in space. Just different things, that you look at it, and just some of our kids just leadership skills. You look at who's just a natural leader, and you get kids that's a natural leaders, and you want those guys to lead your team and try to direct your team.
Right. Now, again, guys, we're talking with Coach Donte Jackson of Grambling, SWAC, and they're making noise down there. Now, we talk about when you talk about Grambling, to most people around the nation, Grambling is a school that football is the first thing that comes to mind. But you guys, and it obviously have been successful. But I thought it was pretty poignant that the year before the day before the SWAC championship, that you guys get the big win down at Georgia Tech. Just talk about helping Grambling basketball get back, because there was a time way back in the day before both of us were around where had Willis Reed, and they had some really great basketball history and tradition, and trying to how a win like that can help you guys start to build back up as basketball wise.
Well, that win was big for us. It kind of put us on the map, and it actually helped our kids believe in the process of just trying to, produce a winning culture. You come in and, no matter what, you can have this, winning history, but, the kids want to, see if you can do it at this school, and you make sure, how are we going to do it, coach? Kind of like when I'm sitting here like, well, all you got to do is believe. If you play hard on the defensive end, good things will happen. So going into that Georgia Tech game, we just found a way. It was, those possessions after possession, we kept scoring, and we kept defending, and we kept rebounding. I'm like, man, we're going to end up winning this game. And I told the guys to keep believing, because just the game before that at North Texas, we was in the same situation, and we fell short. So it was great for our guys to actually pull off that big win. And, that was one of those things that was heard around the country. Like, man, Grambling beat Georgia Tech. So it, helped us with some recruiting, because, kids are kind of calling and saying, hey, coach, what, probably wouldn't have kind of considered Grambling State before, and now I kind of want to consider Grambling State, and I'm like, hey, that's what we want to hear.
Right. And let's go back a little bit further. Now, you talk about big wins. Now, when you were at Stillman, they transitioned over to the NAIA, but before that, they were the SIC, and we've been covering SIC basketball this year. Morehouse and Grambling are doing absolutely great, and they're nationally ranked, and you see Benedict and Claflin, and you talk about really sometimes the schools down south. I want to say sometimes it's HBCU wise, but even just when you think about the SEC versus maybe the ACC or things like that, the schools in the south necessarily they're in football country, and but you had some success down there, and you got some wins at Stillman as well in the NCAA tournament Division II. Just talk about what it's like putting a team together down south. I mean, obviously it's the same everywhere. You go find great players and you recruit them, but just kind of what it's like being a coach in that football country.
The first thing is you got to embrace this is football country. You know what I mean? You got to embrace the fact that football is king down in the South, man. You got to find kids that have toughness to play football. You got to find some kids that can come in that can be really skilled. So it's just one of those things that when you're trying to build a team, you look at a lot of different variables, and when you look at just recruiting, you're trying to recruit kids that's gonna kind of fit your system, fit your style, and that you feel like you can mold into a better person, better player, and a better student athlete.
Right, and so you're coaching at Stillman, and AD Paul Bryant gets the job there at Grambling, and he has an opening there. How did that whole thing come about? Or was that an opportunity that kind of caught you off guard, maybe, or?
Yeah, it's kind of an opportunity that caught me off guard, because I looked at Mr. Bryant as a mentor, and I ended up taking over the AD reins at Stillman. And, he was a guy I would talk to just about athletic director stuff. So I was the athletic director and the basketball coach at Stillman last year. So I would talk to him about different things as far as that, advertising and trying to market and trying to get our teams out there more, and just fundraising strategies. So he ended up having an opening at Grambling. And we were talking one day, and he said, "Hey, you should apply." And I applied, and went from there.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, and that's a good thing that you brought that up about you being the AD there. At a Division I school, you don't really have that anymore, where you're the basketball coach and the AD. How much of a relief is it to have that off of your shoulders? But then also, what did being an AD teach you that even as a coach, where you're not the AD anymore, maybe that still helps you?
Well, it gives what the AD taught me is it gives you a broader perspective of the whole universe. Sometimes as coaches, you just look at it from an athletic standpoint and, academic standpoint. But then as an AD, it just gives you a broader scope of everything that goes on the day-to-day side of a university, because you're in different meetings and you're doing different, you're in a different role at times. But, coming here to Grambling, it just helped me with the more administrative side, because, it's easier for me to kind of filter through the paperwork and, knock things out in a timely fashion. And now I just got more times on my hand to game plan.
Right, and that's never a bad thing. So, you guys are on this hot streak. For a lot of times, this is things that guys have never dealt with before. How do you think your team is dealing with the success? They also often say that dealing with success is more difficult than dealing with failure. So how are you getting those guys to deal with the success and continue to come to practice every day and keep a level head and in the face of the greatness that they're achieving?
Well, the good thing is that my staff that I brought over from Stillman, we've been through a, I think, 18, 19 game win streak before. So it's not like we kind of understand what the streak is about, and we kind of tell the guys, we're gonna take it one game at a time, one possession at a time. Don't get caught up on the streak and trying to reduplicate this and play this way or whatever, trying to be perfect. We're not gonna be perfect. We're gonna make mistakes, but what we want to do is just win one possession at a time and win one game at a time. And the only team we can worry about right now is Jackson State. We can't look backwards. We only can look ahead to Jackson State. So we're gonna correct what we need to correct to get better, and we're gonna focus on Jackson State.
Right. Okay. And lastly, just there's less than a month now between now and the SWAC tournament. So in a month now, they're going to be sending a team to the SWAC from the SWAC to the NCAA tournament. Obviously, as a coach, you got, like you say, your focus right now, one game at a time. But in a month's time, if you were to be cutting down the nets in Houston and heading to the NCAA tournament, what would have been the biggest turnaround? What will have been the biggest turnaround from start to finish in you? Like, is it attitude? Is it effort? Is it defense? Is it offense? What would be the biggest thing that would get you guys to that?
Well, the first and foremost, hopefully our appeal with the NCAA goes through, because we are on the APR band. So,
right.
Right now, hopefully that appeal goes through. But if we do have the chance to play in the SWAC tournament and we do have the chance to cut down those banners, the biggest thing is just going to be the fact that when you look at it, it was the process, and we trust the process. We've been through, trying to grow, get to know each other, because, you inherit the team, and, some of these kids I didn't recruit, some of these kids I did recruit, and now it's time to try to build upon their strengths, upon one another, and try to find out what works, what don't work, and then you just look at the one thing we can control is our effort, and that's the one thing I tell them all the time. You can control what you can control how hard you play. If you control that, a lot of good things will happen for you. So we've been in a situation where we've controlled our effort the whole time, and now we're in a situation where now guys are making shots and getting more confident. So the more confidence we get, the better we get, and we'll just if we get the opportunity to play in that championship game, play in the SWAC tournament, it'll be a blessing, and we'll be ready to rock and roll from that point.
Sounds good. Well, Coach, I definitely appreciate you for coming on and talking Grambling basketball with us. We will definitely be keeping our eye on you guys as well during the rest of the regular season, and if you guys were able to get into the tournament and see what happens there.